Great. So, in the today's class, we will see what is the Appium and why people are preferring this to advantages, and then the another point is what are all the concepts we are gonna study within this training program. This is what we are gonna study in the next few minutes. So assume that in our organization we decided to go for automating mobile apps using an open source tool. In such a cases, few things will be in my mind to select a tool. So what are all those things I need to consider in order to select any kind of automation testing tool? So the first point out over here is I don't want to compile or modify the source code of the application. Okay, so the most important point is whatever the application we are gonna submit to the Play Store, the same app I need to test. What does it mean? So it means there are many open source mobile automation testing tools like Appium, which needs a modification of the source code before conducting of a testing on that particular application, and even after testing was done, we need to remove those changes. It means in these cases we are not gonna test the application whatever we are gonna submit to the Play Store. So it means we are performing some compilation and modification of that particular application. And the another and a most important point out over here in selecting a tool is my tool should support virtual devices and as well as a real device too. Whatever the tool I'm selecting, it should support both the virtual devices and as well as the real devices also. And my programs should return in Java so that it can support any kind of frameworks. The best example is I would like to select a tool which supports multiple programming languages, just like a WebDriver itself. And as it is an open source tool, I usually search for a large community support, and even it supports to automate built-in application in our mobile phones. Here a small terminology which we used is built-in apps like dialer, contacts, camera, etc. So these are all the apps which comes with the phone itself. So these apps we can call it as an built-in apps. Okay, these apps we can call it as a built-in apps. So whatever the tool we are selecting, it should support in order to automate all these built-in apps, and even it will allow you to communicate with other apps whenever we are working. The best example is WhatsApp. See, I'm using this particular app whenever we are using a video calling functionality, then it is using camera and working on this app. So it means whatever the app I'm gonna use, it should use the default system resources. Okay, so these are all the various things which usually comes in my mind before selecting any kind of automation testing tool. Okay, so before testing any kind of an automation testing tool, these are all things which comes in our mind. Okay, so am I clear for you, Srilata, or do you have any questions with respect to these points?
Yeah, I can hear clearly.
Okay, good. And then the next point out over here is what is an APM and what exactly the most important things which we have and how it was built. So APM is an mobile web native and a hybrid software application automation testing tool which was developed and supported by Sauce Labs. It is an open source automation testing tool which is useful to automate both the Android and as well as an iOS platforms applications. To automate both the Android and iOS platform applications, we are going for this particular tool. So the most important thing which we need to consider is it is a cross-platform automation testing tool so that we can write the test against iOS and we can execute it on an Android too. So it means we can prepare the test script for one operating system and with a minute modification we can execute it on a different operating system. Okay, and the most important point which we need to consider is APM is a tool which supports testing on real devices and virtual devices. Virtual devices we can call it as an emulators and as well as simulators. So these emulators and simulators we can call it as a virtual devices. Okay, fine. So the next and most important point is how this APM was built. So it is an HTTP web server which was written on a Node.js that creates and handles WebDriver sessions only. Node.js is a platform built on a Chrome's JavaScript runtime for easily building a fast and a scalable network applications. And moreover, Node.js uses an event-driven, non-blocking I/O model that makes it lightweight, efficient, and perfect for real-time applications that run across a distributed devices. So it was built on top of these Node.js, which is used to build server-side applications or network-side applications. Okay, fine. So what exactly this architecture of this particular APM? As a APM is an HTTP server, it performs pretty much the same as a WebDriver itself. Appium works as a client-server architecture, okay, which follows a JSON wide protocol. The communication will happen with the session IDs. So here, a simple point out over here is it's gonna support a client-server architecture. Client-server architecture. So here the client means the programming language wherein which we are going to write down the programs, which is a Java, and the server means it's an APM server. So here this client will send a request Based on this request, the server will interact with either iPhone, any Android device, or any virtual device. So it means here from client we will get a request. Based on the request, whatever we are getting, the server will communicate with any one of these three. Okay, so as it is following a client server and a JSON wire protocol, for each and every request, it's gonna send a response. But whenever we got a request, this server will create a session ID, and using this session ID itself, the further communication will happen between this client and as well as a server. So whatever the session ID it got created, using this session ID itself, okay, using this session ID itself, it's gonna establish a relation between a client and as well as a server. So usually a simple question will rise in our mind. Okay, right now we are specifying this session ID, but how we are relating these two means, see, this is my Appium server. So whenever you want to start your Appium server, okay, whenever you want to start your Appium server, we will specify a unique port number. Okay, whenever you are going to start an Appium server, we are going to specify a unique port number. The same port number we are going to pass it while creating a program which will establish a connection between a server and as well as this, okay, a server and as well as this client. Okay, so I'm just trying to open both the Eclipse editor and as well as this Appium server so that we can understand how this session will create. But the ultimate point is this session ID means here we are considering this one as a port number. Okay, it's gonna pass the support number between these two, using which the session ID is created and a further communication will be happened between these two. Okay, fine. So usually a simple question will rise in our mind. How come this client is gonna specify on which device it needs to execute the script? So here within this Appium, okay, within this client, we are gonna pass desired capabilities. Using these desired capabilities, we are gonna specify platform name, platform version, automation name, device name, application name. All these information we are gonna pass, okay, all these information we are gonna pass within the client using these desired capabilities, so that with the help of these desired capabilities information, the server will interact with the respective device. See here, you identified that this Appium server is going to start on a 4723 port, whereas while writing a program also, we need to specify the same port number, which is a 4723 itself. So with this, we are establishing a connection between a server and as well as a client with this particular port number itself. Okay, so the most important point out over here is the desired capabilities will play a major role, using which it's gonna pass the target application, the target platform, and the automation name, application information and all these things we are going to pass with this desired capabilities itself. Fine. So to understand more about these Appium desired capabilities, we can study from this link. Okay, we can study from this link which will gives you more details about these Appium desired capabilities. Okay, this will give more details about this Appium desired capabilities. If you navigate to Appium IO, so you can find more details about these Appium desired capabilities. Okay, so here it is. So it contains a detailed information about the design capabilities and other stuff. So from the Appium official website itself, you can get these detailed information. Okay, see here, Appium server capabilities. We need to pass an automation name. We need to pass a platform name. We need to pass a platform version, device name, app name, browser name. So based on our requirement, we need to pass the desired parameters out over here. This is an Android only specification. This and here we have an iOS only specification also. Like this, we can pass the desired capabilities with which the server will communicate with respective devices. Okay, fine. Done up to here. And the next and most important thing is about the limitations of this Appium 2. So what are all the various limitations with respect to this too? So the basic limitations are using this Appium, we can't automate the mobile devices which are having the Android API level less than 17. What is an Android API level means? Okay, so Android API level. See here, I'm just clicking on the first link. So the simple point out over here is each and every Android version is having its own API level. Okay, each and every Android version is having its own API levels. Okay, so let me scroll down here. If you observe Android, see API 25, which is having the Android version as a 7.1. API 24, the Android version is a 7.0. So mobile automation testing tool Appium will support for, see here, for which versions? Greater than API level 17. It means if your Android version is greater than 4.2, for those Android versions only this tool will support. Below these versions, we need to use SL Android itself. If your mobile phone is having an Android version as a 4.1, in such cases, we need to go for SL Android itself, as Appium is a tool which supports for the Android 4.2 and above, or we can consider it as an API level greater than 17. And the another point is, whenever you are trying to execute the script in an iOS platform, the script execution is a bit slower. Script execution is very slow in Android virtual devices. So whenever you are creating a virtual device, so the script execution is very slow within these Android virtual devices itself. And so we don't have so we don't have support to handle all the gestures, and we can't handle certain toast messages. Okay, so these are all the various limitations whatever we have with respect to this too. Okay, so these are all the various limitations with respect to this particular tool. Okay, fine. So moving on to the regular sessions, what we are going to study means we are going to study an introduction to mobile testing and what are all the key points which we need to remember while testing a mobile app. Okay, so what are all the key points we need to remember whenever we are testing any kind of mobile app? What are all the various types of applications we have, and pros and cons of each and every type we are going to study. Okay, so pros and cons of each and every type of an application we are going to study. Overview on mobile networks and operating systems, browsers we are going to study. And followed by regular sessions, we are going to start with the Android device testing. Initially, we will see with the configuration required for Android, and we will download the entire setup. And then we will work on a couple of applications with the various examples. And once we are done with a complete Android, here we are going to study with mobile browser, native app, hybrid app, all the various kinds of apps we are going to study with an Android. And then we will go for configuration for iOS. And then how can we work on the real devices and the virtual devices, how to handle various kinds of operations on iOS also we are gonna study. Including this one, we are gonna study about a framework, first point. And another point out over here is we are gonna see about Maven and Jenkins integration as well. So altogether, the total training would be about 25 to 30 hours. See, if you observe each and every day, we will share you this kind of detailed running notes which contains an information about all the concepts which we discussed. And if at all you would like to download something from where you need to download, and other information will also be specified within these running notes with a real-time examples. So we are going to consider a bunch of examples, and in each and every session we are going to cover with a real-time example, and we are going to see how can we execute it on a real devices and as well as a virtual devices for both Android and as well as iPhone. So this is the stuff we are going to study within this training program. Am I clear for you so far, or do you have any questions for me on this, Srilata?
No.
Good. So this is the concepts which I have for the demo session.